From Tally to Cali.
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by
Vitamin Energy.
The vitamins.
The energy.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi
and Corey Clark.
Wake up! It's Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy. Coming up on today's show, warning, two guys that are usually very skeptical have a lot of optimism and see the glass way more than half full after a settlement is reached and Florida State now has their exit in sights from the ACC. Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com. Shake it and take it. Sip the juice, everybody. Shoot, you can even try it risk-free if you want. Every Vitamin Energy order comes with a 100% satisfaction guarantee, or you'll receive a full no-hassle refund. Vitamin Energy's got vitamins, nutrients, ingredients you can pronounce, including vitamin B12, leucine, builds muscle, repairs tissue, essential for protein synthesis. Valine, aids in muscle metabolism, Corey, boosts tissue repair and recovery. Coenzyme Q10 powers your cells, supports heart health, and fights oxidative stress. All this and more in a little 2-ounce bottle. Try the Focus variant, everybody. They've got that tropical infusion flavor. You know, we're ready for spring to arrive. Let's get in the mood, everybody. VitaminEnergy.com. Shake it and take it. Synergistic enhanced energy. VitaminEnergy.com. Warchant.com. Synergy we've got built between this show, Jeff Cameron's show, headlines, that's later today, and all the reporting that happens with Michael Langston, Matt Lucero on the recruiting front, all part of the experience of being a Warchant.com member. Come home. Try it, everybody. Lots of stuff going down. Corey Clark, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, buddy. I'm good. It was a pretty eventful day on Monday.
Right.
Yeah.
Typically,
well, I guess it's going to be an eventful day today, too, with some Board of Trustees meetings and maybe votes. Who the heck knows? But, yeah, pretty important information that came out on Monday morning.
Yeah, typically we're not of the vintage to drop a show on a Tuesday for you, everybody. But as Corey said, some pretty newsworthy stuff. So there was, I didn't realize, but there's 4 lawsuits that was ongoing between Florida State, Clemson, and the ACC. And on Monday morning, reports came down from ESPN that there had been a settlement, which, you know, I guess people will talk about winners and losers, Corey, but I guess, you know, the first reaction to people is like, oh, settlement, that means we're sitting here and we're screwed, and it's, I think it's anything but, man. The settlement outlines kind of a two-pronged sort of solution, if you will, for Florida State, Clemson, and whoever else wants to hop on this boat to go to greener pastures or clearer waters or whatever. But a new distribution model, which 40% of your television revenue will be split evenly amongst all your legacy schools. So that's the schools that exclude the Johnny-come-latelys, a.k.a. Cal, SMU, and Stanford. The other 60% of the TV revenue that you're getting is going to be split based on what they're calling the brand initiative, Corey. So this also piggybacks off the success initiative, which was if you make it into the NCAA basketball tournament, if you make it to a New Year's Six Bowl playoff, et cetera, you'll make more money. I think SMU and Clemson are scheduled to make $4 million more than everybody else this past year because they made it to the playoff. Or I shouldn't say $4 million more than everybody, but they got $4 million as part of the success initiative from making the college football playoff. Slight problem is we don't know exactly how that formula is going to work right now, but in the reporting from Pete Thamel, it said that probably there's going to be near $15 million for the top-end schools in the conference that they're going to receive in excess of what was going to be like $40 million or something like that on the annual basis. So, you know, everyone talks about this huge revenue gap. This is going to address part of it. And then I don't know if this is bearing the lead or not, Corey, but then the reduced exit. So right now, if Florida State were to try to leave, they'd have to pay around $200 million American dollars to leave the conference.
Yeah.
As part of this quote-unquote settlement, you make compromises. Well, if you decide to leave after the 2030, well, actually the 29 season, it'd be the 2030 calendar year. If you decide to leave after the 2029 football season, it's going to drop down to below $100 million. So again, if you're a Florida State fan, and I don't know who is responsible for putting the idea that this was going to be quick and easy and clean and a decisive absolute victory, but man, you wanted to get more money. You want to get out of here earlier and at a cheaper rate. Check, check, check.
Yeah, look, you're not going to be on par with the SEC or the Big Ten for the rest of the decade. That's obvious, but you're closer. Number one, you're not only are you closer financially to what they're going to be making, $15 million, it sounds like, closer per year than you would have been otherwise if you'd have just stood pat and not sued. But then also you're also closer to getting out of the conference because $96 million or whatever after the 2029 football season is a lot more. It's a lot easier to stomach than $200 million right now. Plus, the not so small, bit of information that the Big Ten's new contract starts in 2030. Like the 2029-2030 calendar year is also the last year of the current Big Ten deal.
Right.
So there's some, there's maybe some symmetry there that make it a little more feasible to get out of the conference at the same time the Big Ten might be looking to add. It's just, look, it's not what everybody wanted when this all started, but lawsuits are ugly. Attorney fees rise up, and you wonder what's the best case scenario for Florida State. Right now, the best case scenario for Florida State is the 2030 football season, they're in another conference. Is that as good as 2026? No. How much would it have cost Florida State to get to the Big Ten or the SEC in 2027? Was it even possible? Were they looking? Would they have even broken their contracts to add Florida State? Well, now it seems like that 2030 football season is the target.
Yes, correct.
You've been waiting 35 years, everyone. What's a few more? And look, the SEC might come up with their own offer to keep Florida State and Clemson and Miami and North Carolina from going to the Big Ten. And but yeah, I think overall, number one, the success initiative always bothered me. Always. I don't care if you win the ACC. I don't care that SMU won the ACC.
Well, they did. Clemson
made the ACC championship game. No. Nobody watches their football games. So why would they get more money? Florida State still had better ratings than SMU, and they had the exact opposite records. Because Florida State matters when it comes to advertisers and eyeballs, and SMU doesn't. Might not ever, like most of the teams in the ACC. So I do like the fact that it sounds like the teams in the ACC are willing to admit that Florida State and Clemson are more important, because they are. Florida State's the most important because they get the most eyeballs. They're the reason the ACC network exists. They're the reason that they got the deal they got in the first place. And it only makes sense that Florida State and Clemson get a bigger piece of the pie because they matter more than you, Pitt, and you, Virginia, and you, Boston College, and you, Syracuse. You don't deserve the same revenue as Florida State. You don't make anything for this conference. So I like that they've at least made that equitable or fair in the sense that Florida State and Clemson do deserve more. Now, does this keep Florida State and Clemson in the ACC till 2036? Probably not, but they'll cross that bridge when they get there. It keeps them in the conference. If all these reports are accurate, and there's no reason to doubt them. Andy Staples, who works at On3, also had a detailed account where he heard the same numbers, around $15 million. Number right now is 200 to get out of the ACC. In 5 years from now, it'll be 100. So then you're like, okay, just do that math real quick, Aslan. If Florida State paid the settlement to get out of the ACC right now, let's say that's an extra $100 million that they're having to pay. If you save that $100 million and then you add the $15 million per year that you're going to get, well, now you're clearing $35 million a year. That's $20 million a year you're saving by not leaving the ACC right now, on top of the $15 million apparently you'll be getting because you're Florida State. So that's $35 million extra per year that this university is getting that it wouldn't have gotten if it just got out of the conference right now. And you could argue and say, yeah, but the Big Ten would pay them double that. We don't know that. We assume that, but we don't know that. So I feel like the ACC gets to remain a conference for the rest of the decade, and Florida State gets to be made not whole in relation to what other big boy football programs are getting, but close enough. Close enough. So good. And now there is absolutely no excuse for not being in the top 2 or 3 in this conference every year. You don't need to be losing to Wake Forest when you get $15 million a year annually more than they do. So I don't know how the brand initiative is going to work. I don't know how they measure it.
We don't know, right? Yeah, that's another thing too. And it's something about a 5-year rolling average. So I mean, everyone can sit here and talk about, oh, this is bad. Florida State was so bad last year, but I mean, over 5 years, I mean, there's peaks obviously, and then these valleys. So
and then who's even bad years? Who's getting more eyeballs than Florida State in this conference?
Right.
Nobody. So yeah, they're gonna be on top of that. Clemson will be on top of that. It's a bit of a bummer that Miami gets all the benefits of something like this without putting in any of the skin that Florida State and Clemson did. But I also don't think Miami's eyeballs are the same as Florida State's. I don't think their ratings are the same, so they shouldn't make as much. But they get a bump, even though they didn't lift a finger, because they're one of the brands in this conference. But by and large, it delays getting out of this conference. That's the bad thing. The good thing is it gives you a substantial advantage over the rest of the conference for the rest of the decade. And as we've talked about ad nauseum on this show and will continue to, you just got to be in the top 2 in this conference and you're going to be in the playoff. So that's not asking too much. And honestly, $15 million extra a year is pretty nice when it comes to your other sports if you choose to use it that way. But even if you don't, it gets you closer to what Florida and Alabama are. Are you going to be there? No. You weren't going to be there no matter what happened this past few years, because whatever extra money you might have made going to the Big Ten, that would have had to have been used, some of it, to pay off the ACC. Well, now you save that money because you're not paying off the ACC. And I don't know if the ACC is going to present this as like a victory for them, but, man, they acquiesced, right? They gave Florida State some stuff that, we heard 3 years ago, Aslan, ironclad.
Right.
Ironclad. You can't get out of the grant of rights. Sorry, you signed it, 2036. Suck it up, losers. Well, no, actually, that's not true. Apparently, Florida State can get out in 5 years as opposed to 11, and also they're getting more money than everybody else in the conference. So wasn't exactly a win for the ACC. It wasn't a total win for Florida State, but it was it wasn't a home run. It was a single to the gap where you might push to second to try to get a double.
Yeah, I think both sides won on this one. I mean, the ACC...
Yes, they get to remain a thing.
Yes. I mean, the ACC, I guess for all their bluster about, like you said, ironclad, grant of rights, can't leave, yada, yada, I mean, they recognized that litigation was probably not going to go in their favor. And even if it was, I mean, it just wasn't going to be obviously economically viable for them to fight it out the way they'd have to remain a thing. So this gives them, again, some relatively short-term security. But then, I mean, come on. If you hang on for 5 more years, well, 4 more years, really, your buyout...
full football season.
Yeah, we got to do this season. That's right. I mean, the buyout drops below
also,
9
there's
figures?
a number. That's what Andy Staples brought up in his story. Is like, there's a number. The ACC told us when this first started, there wasn't a number. Yeah. Because even if Florida State wanted to pay some exit fee, they still wouldn't own their grant of rights till 2036. They still wouldn't own their media rights, to keep it in dumb layman's terms, because I am one. They wouldn't be able to own their media rights until 2036. So Florida State could have gone to the Big Ten. This was the ACC's argument in their first lawsuit. Remember, they sued first. Their argument was, even if Florida State left for the Big Ten or the SEC, the ACC would still own their media rights for the next 13 years. And and they also kept saying there's no number. So with that regard, there isn't a number that could be paid because there isn't a way to get out of this conference. Well, now there is a number. We know it. Again, according to reports, this is all cloak and dagger behind the curtain stuff anyway. Who knows if we'll ever actually see the actual numbers. But the report is that it's $200 million right now. In 5 years, it's $100 million. So there is a number. There is a way out, folks. There, according to what we're hearing, what everybody's reporting, there will be a contract that says at the end of the 2030 calendar school year, that Florida State and Clemson and whoever else can pay a fee and get out of the conference. That was not something that was here that was in black and white writing 2 days ago, 2 months ago, 2 years ago. Now, according to these reports, it will be in writing, and that is an actual target. That is a way out. You can see the exit sign. It's 5 years down the road, but you can now see an exit sign.
Yeah. Grant of rights is another thing that obviously is TBD, part of this equation. I just want to read from the reporting here. It says both schools, that'd be Florida State and Clemson, would consider this a win as well after they decide to file lawsuits in their home states in hopes of extricating themselves from a grant of rights agreement. Although the settlement will not make substantive changes to the grant of rights, it is expected that there will be declining financial penalties for schools that exit before 2036. At the end of the story, Corey says, sources told FSU there would be just one number to exit the league, not the combination estimated by FSU of a traditional exit fee and the loss of media from the grant of rights. So I don't want to put this in Sharpie, but it does sound like from the reporting that ESPN put out there, yeah, I mean, there is going to be this singular exit. There's not going to be, all right, like, the late fee and then the interest on top of it. There's not going to be, all right, this is your freedom, but we still own your TV rights. It's like, pay us this, you're gone, you keep your rights, everything's clean. So it's almost, it exceeds a $200 million, $100 million savings when you really think about at least what FSU had cooked and baked into what they thought this was all going to cost at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think it needs to be understood that Florida State made this happen. Florida State was aggressive. It was proactive. It was very vocal. Clemson eventually got in the fight too, but it was much more behind the scenes. Florida State was leading the charge. And took some arrows doing it. But in the grand scale of things, we were told, again, when all this happened, so many people, national media, the ACC's lawyers, which are much more important than media folks, were saying, yeah, good luck, Florida State. Good luck. The grant of rights is ironclad. You signed it. There's nothing you could do. It kept coming back to ironclad. It wasn't. What contract really ever is, but that certainly was not ironclad. And today, as we talk, Florida State has a way out. It is not immediate. It's not this year, next year. But there is a way out from the ACC, and it opens the door for a lot of possibilities in the next 5 or 6 years. Because, yeah, man, like I said, the Big Ten will be up for a new contract. They would be much more appealing to Fox or whoever wants to bid on them if Florida State and Clemson are in the mix. Theoretically, hoping Florida State can get back to being Florida State the next few years. Get a couple playoff appearances in the next half decade. That will make you much more appealing to the Big Ten. Also make your ratings higher. All that stuff matters, man. And I like the fact that Florida State got something out of it. Was it some of it bluster? Sure. This is how negotiations work. This is how lawsuits work. And I don't think they got into it to settle, which is how you always get to the best settlement. Like if you're legitimate, like, no, I want out. You can get somebody to acquiesce. If they believed Florida State, didn't they? They were worried that Florida State and Clemson really wanted out. This was not just a play to get, to negotiate some smaller fee or get out. And Florida State wanted out, and they wanted out now. And so the ACC battled, and like you said, it's kind of a win for them too. But it's a short-term win. The long-term win, 100% goes to Florida State. 100%. You don't have to be in this conference in 2036. You get out 6 years before you were supposed to get out. It's not a home run, like I said, but I like the fact that Florida State took the initiative, and the ACC had to admit, oh no, they might have a real chance to get out of here. They put because look, what would have happened, Aslan? This was the point I was trying to make, and I just talked in circles there for 45 seconds. What if Florida State had just stood pat, and not made a fuss, and not sued? But you know what I mean? Like, I know Florida State fans can be upset right now, but what would you have had them do? They just made the best deal I think they could possibly get in the short term, other than getting out of the league, which doesn't seem like it was even feasible. Big Ten might not have wanted them. Big Ten might have said in back channels, hey, we can't add you till 2030 anyway, so get the best deal you can until then, which is exactly what Florida State did. So I don't mind this. I don't mind it. It's not 100% what you wanted, but if Florida State had stood pat, they would be in this crappy conference for the next 11 years, 12 years, with nothing to show for it. Now, they make $15 million a year more than Boston College. Good. And they also got their exit fee reduced to $100 million-ish 7 years earlier than it was supposed to be.
Yep.
So feels like that's a win. Feels like it's a win.
Yeah. Hey, listen, man, Texas and Oklahoma had to spend $100 million to leave the Big 12. So you're not in the business of spending double what the University of Texas athletic budget can afford. So the $100 million, 2030, sign me up.
And in the meantime, I want to point out again, it's going to be easier for you to get in the playoff. Mm-hmm. That's just a fact of life. It's an easier trek to get to the playoff if this guy can coach, if he's as good as he's proven to be, and if he avoids disasters. You should be in the playoff multiple years for the rest of this decade. And maybe you get a transcendent quarterback and you go win a national title or play for a national title. Either way, I feel like you're set up for success for the rest of this decade, and then we'll see where any of us are in 2030.
It's about that time, everybody. The Clarks hosting trivia night at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, 2475 Appalachia Parkway, cptallybar.com, the website. Really crank up the meta, everybody. Get out there, hang out with Corey Clark as he's hosting, emceeing trivia with his lovely bride of 1 year and 3 days. By the time, yeah. Well, 2 days. 1 year and 2 days, yeah. While you're eating the Corey wrap and maybe have an earbud before they actually start in your ear listening to Corey on headlines from earlier in the day.
Maybe Bill will have headlines going on one of the screens.
That's right.
So you can watch me there, too.
Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, awesome food, great value, ice-cold drinks, fantastic value. All the games on all the screens, billiards, darts, everything else you could possibly want at your favorite sports bar, plus, obviously, Corey Clark, Stephanie Clark hanging out. Go check them out. Check out the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, 2475 Appalachia Parkway, cptallybar.com, the website. We are back. It's Wake Up Warchant, presented by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com. Shake it and take it. One of the things that I don't want to say we buried in the lead of, go check out the video. I'm sure check out Ira and Jeff from yesterday. Ira and Gene had some great stuff on Monday. I'm sure a lot of you have seen it, but if you have not been to the YouTube channel, go give that a spin for some more information. But like 20 minutes into it, Corey, obviously, 2030 now becomes this target date of getting out of this conference and then finding a new home. But it feels like with this now being such a certainty, like it's out in the open, you're separated, if you will. Like maybe the divorce hasn't gone through, but you have moved out of the house. You are legally separated. It feels like knowing your next step, you're not going to have to wait till, I don't know, November 2029 to find out when it's going to happen. Because I know
Correct.
5 years sounds so far away, but now that there's this sort of line of demarcation, some real certainty to what can happen, it feels like it's probably only a matter of 18 months, 2 years probably before things start kind of falling into place. I hate to really put a firm timeline on it, but we're not going to have to wait 5 years for, I guess, the joy of finding out your next home and the fact you're going to be making $65-70 million a year in TV revenue.
Yeah, it's not like Texas and Oklahoma just went to the SEC. Like they had to play at least one more year in the Big 12, maybe two.
I think one. I think they got out a year earlier than they were going to, so I think they actually had to play one last season.
Okay, I thought it was two, but yeah, either way, USC had to do that, right? Like they announced they were going to the Big Ten and still played one last season in the Pac-12, or maybe two. So I feel like that's what it'll be. Look, once this becomes official and it's voted on and written down and it's signed by everyone that matters, you can start shopping yourself. Like officially, like you're on the market.
Yep.
You're on the market, and the Big Ten and the SEC, which are the only two you care about, will know what it's going to cost to bring you in. And they're going to know that they can bring you in. It's written right there. They don't have to worry about the ACC suing them for your grant of rights. It's all clean now. You're on the market. So, yeah, that's a really good point. I don't think it'll be this year or next year, but you're not going to roll it. You're not going to be watching Mike Norvell hoist the Crystal Trophy or whatever is it? It's still not a crystal ball anymore, is it? What is it?
Whatever. It's just some sort of obelisk kind of shape thing. Who knows?
So you're not going to see Mike Norvell hoisting that thing at the 2030 Rose Bowl and then wondering, man, where are we going to be in 6 months? No, they'll have announced their intentions well before that, I think. And yeah, so I would. That's exciting. That's good. It won't. Yeah, you're not gonna have to wait 6 years to know what the future is. It's not. You're not gonna wait 6 months. I don't think it'll be longer than that. But I feel like 2028, you'll probably know where Florida State's next conference is going to be. And hey, it might be the ACC. Maybe they add Notre Dame. Maybe they go poach Georgia and Alabama. Maybe they go on the offensive, Aslan. How about that? Maybe ACC is where the future is.
All right, so in doing a quick cursory Google search, it looks like there's a new 10-year deal that started between the SEC and the ESPN when they started also putting these games on ABC. Because last year they were still on CBS, weren't they? Wasn't last year at the 2023? 2023. I mean, when I say last year, I get it, but I know what you're saying. I should be saying more clearly. I'm sorry. So they signed a 10-year deal that started this past season, 2024-25. That's going to conclude in 2020 or 2033-34. But I do see also some reporting out there that 2031 is the same year that the Big Ten, SEC, and Big 12 broadcast deals expire. So I'll have to figure out and get to the bottom of that at some point, hopefully by the end of the show. But if not, don't get too mad at me. Corey, I mean, what do you think right now? Obviously ESPN had to sign off on this. Maybe could there be some sort of wink, wink, nod, nod? We'll somewhat take it a little bit easy on you guys here and let you out of the contract, but give us some consideration. Maybe the SEC when that time comes, or are you sticking by, I guess, a lot of what Gene's reporting has gone back to, I think, for over a year now, that there is some semblance of a handshake agreement with the Big Ten that if the seas parted and all this litigation went away, they would be welcome into the Midwestern National Footprint Conference. That's the Big Ten.
Yeah, that's probably. I think that's the landing place that makes the most sense. But as Staples said in his story, I think the SEC deal runs till 2034. But they can always make an adjustment to it and get defensive. They could defend what they think is their territory, which is the South. And they do not want big-name programs going to another network in another conference, in my opinion. So the best way to get into the SEC, if there's even a possible chance, is to have a handshake agreement with the Big Ten. Screw those guys. We know handshake agreements with them mean nothing anyway. Old Phillips is still worried about what happened to the alliance. So handshake agreements mean nothing, but if the SEC thinks you have a real agreement in place, not only to bring in Florida State, but Clemson, Miami, and North Carolina. So they're getting, 4 big brands. I know North Carolina isn't a big brand of football, but that's a lot of people, and it's a big basketball brand. They're coming into your neck of the woods and taking some pretty marketable programs. The SEC might want to put a fence around it. And they might go to their presidents and say, look, I know we got a good thing going, but the Big Ten's going to raid the South and get Florida State and Clemson. And they're already as good a conference as we are now. Now we're going to give them the southern footprint of this country. We don't want to do that. So let's amend our contract and make sure we bring in these schools to our that's the best way to get a deal with the SEC. I've always said is to have one with the Big Ten. It's the only way. They would never be proactive. They're going to be defensive. Give them a real reason to want you. The reason they want Florida State and Clemson is because they don't want them in the Big Ten. Now that's a distinct possibility by the end of the decade. So that gives the SEC, maybe a boost to want to get, the Florida State and Clemson to get out of the. I can't even think of the words I'm trying to do right now. It's been a long day, Aslan. It's been a long day. I apologize.
I looked away and wrote something down. If I was paying attention, I might have been able to help fill in the blanks. But
it's fine. People, guys, this is how my brain works. It used to be a big brain with lots of big words. Now it's just ands and ums all the time. But I think that might be the boost. That might be the Kickstarter that the SEC needs to actually offer Florida State and Clemson.
The sweetener.
Well, not just like.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
The motivation,
some leverage, yeah.
But you have leverage over the SEC right now. In the motivation, their only motivation to get the SEC, to get Florida State and Clemson, is to keep them away from the Big Ten. And now you have a real runway to get to the Big Ten. It's not that hard to see. You don't have to squint really hard to see it. It's right there. It's a ways away, but it's right there. And every day the SEC doesn't act is every day closer that Florida State is to being in the Big Ten. And maybe the SEC's fine with that. Maybe by 2030 it's just going to be the country split in half anyway. Maybe they won't even have conferences for football. All of this is up in the air. We don't know how any of this is going to play out. But if it keeps going at this rate, having the opportunity to go to the Big Ten and them wanting you and offering you a spot is the best way to get to the SEC.
I don't think everybody is as filled with excitement as we've been mostly on the Warchant channels here for like the last 18 hours, 24 hours, depending on when you're listening to this, everybody. But I thought this was kind of like a reasonable take and wanted to kind of get your thoughts on it. Corey, sorry to steal your thoughts, Seminole 13 on the Tribal Council, but I think he's been a longtime member, all networks. He came with us, I think, when it was $1, July 13th, 2022. He's made 1,040 posts, Corey.
There you go.
Strong.
Get his money's worth.
Strong. He liked what Ira and Gene had to say in the video that we published on Monday. He says, I am sold that this was the right move. Just need to hope being in a mid-major conference for 6 more seasons doesn't erode our program and brand too far. And I think we talked about this maybe a few weeks ago, Corey, when we got some pushback on being okay with just competing for 1 or 2 playoff spots, auto bids in the ACC, and it's, you're going to get left behind. Kids aren't going to want to come play for Florida State. They're not in a big boy conference. I don't think Florida State could erode over 6 years unless they were to go 2-10 every single season, but I can't imagine that happening. I mean, how concerned are you that even with the revenue gap being closed with not the Success Initiative, but the Brand Initiative, just the fact that you're in this conference that's looked upon as being lesser than could possibly be too big of a hole to dig out of in the eyes and the sort of reputation of college football fans.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just not concerned about that. The ACC, the optics of what people think the ACC are doesn't matter. Nobody thought the ACC was good in 2013 either. You won a national championship. 99, it wasn't like people were lauding how great and tough Florida State's path was to a national championship that year. The ACC has never been viewed as a great football conference, even though there were years when it was arguably the best one in the country. It's never been lauded that way. So the optics of it, I don't care about that at all. I care about the money gap. That's been not rectified, but it's been lessened.
But to interject, Corey, in 1999, though, you are the preeminent program in all of college football. You've played in, 4 consecutive national titles up to that point? Like, Florida State is not nearly as...
But I'm saying the power of the conference didn't... Like, if Florida State plays great, the power of the conference didn't impact them then. It didn't impact them in 2013. Like, they got to go play for the national championship. So in 2023,
barely in 2014 though, right? Corey barely got to play for
that's when the SEC nonsense started. Yeah. Honestly, was 2014. That's when it really took off to another level that it hasn't slowed down. But the point being, my point was, if Florida State's good enough and is winning games by a lot and winning a lot of games, people, whether they think the ACC sucks or not, won't matter. You will have a chance to go win a national championship. You can compete even when your conference is viewed as less than, because you've been doing it for 30-something years now. So you can do it. I know 2023 happened. I get it. I 100% agree that an undefeated SEC team would have made the playoff. I'm not sure 2023 Florida State would have been undefeated in the SEC. So there's the trade-off. But he, especially when Jordan went down. Well, I guess he played an SEC team then. Tate Rodemaker beat the crap out of him. Don't know if Tate Rodemaker or if Brock Glenn would have been able to beat Georgia or Alabama that day,
right?
In the SEC championship game, but that's another conversation. But what I push back on is the mid-major. The ACC isn't a mid-major. The Mountain West is a mid-major. The ACC is the 3rd biggest football conference in the country. It's well below the other two. But to me, mid-major, that's like
the Big 12.
That's
the Horizon League.
The Horizon, the MAC, the Mountain West, the Sun Belt. Those are mid-majors, man. The ACC is not a mid-major. You don't get 2 seats in the playoff as a mid-major. So to that point, absolutely. If Florida State's in the playoff 3 of the next 6 years, you think their brand is going to be so diminished that it won't matter? Florida State needs to take care of their own shit. Sorry, Aslan. They need to take care of their own stuff and start winning this conference routinely or being in the top 2. Because if you're in the top 2, you're relevant because you're in the playoff every year. That's not that much to ask. And I am not a believer because of the last 40 years, because of Bobby Bowden, Mickey Andrews, Dion, Sammy, Leroy Butler, Buckley, Jameis. There's too much built up with this program that being in a quote-unquote mid-major for the next 5 years is going to irreparably harm it. Come on, man. Take care of your stuff. Be good. Get to the playoff every year or two. Even if you don't win it, you are relevant. And then you're set up to really take off in 2030. Take back off again. Or you might be the best program in the country in 5 years anyway. There's no rule against that. Clemson somehow managed it when they weren't making as much money as other schools and they were on the poor ACC. They still managed it in a mid-major. Like Florida State needs to, in my opinion, now that we've reached this point. This is just my opinion. I understand everybody's angst. Florida State needs to stop worrying about what these other conferences are doing right now because now we know the exit ramp. I get the worry until Monday afternoon. Now you know the exit ramp. You know you've got 5 or 6 years. For these next 5 or 6 years, don't worry about how much Alabama or Ohio State's making. Worry about beating Boston College convincingly every year. Worry about being in Charlotte for the championship game every year. Be in the top 2, get to the playoff. You do that for the next decade, you'll be fine. Whether you're making $30 million less than Alabama or not. Will you win the national championship? No, not every year. You might win it once. It's really hard to win a national championship. Ohio State barely did it, and they got more money than the Cowboys. It's really hard to win college football national championships. But 2-10 is a disgrace. Get back to 10. Go flip that. Go 10-2 every year. You'll be fine. And there's no reason for Florida State not to be 9-3 or 10-2 every year, especially now that they're in this conference for the rest of the decade, playing a bunch of schools that don't care all that much about football and aren't getting $15 million extra a year. You're paying your coach a lot of money. You're paying these players and assistants a lot of money. Go act like it and start winning the conference again on a regular basis. Sorry, I'm off my soapbox now.
Let me get on my soapbox. People always have that question, what do you get the gift for somebody that already has everything? I don't know, man. The Ridge Wallet's pretty cool, Corey. I don't know if you've been able to sneak around and use yours yet, but we were able to check out the website a few weeks ago and put an order in. And right now, I assure you, the prices have gone down significantly after we checked them out a few weeks ago. Right now, Ridge is having their once-a-year anniversary sale. Get 40% off at ridge.com/wakeup. I know a wallet's just a wallet. You put your stuff in it, but there's a lot of important stuff in it.
Yeah.
The Ridge wallet actually comes with a lifetime warranty, so it literally would be the last wallet you'd ever purchase in your life. I like it, man. I'm not a front pocket wallet guy, but I'm coming around to it. It just looks super cool. Like the feel, the finish, the build of it just feels really cool. So I'm all aboard, man.
And it's not even a wallet. It's like I don't even know what you'd call it. I know it is a wallet. It serves as a wallet, but it does not look like a traditional wallet in any sense. It's I don't know. How would you describe the way it looks?
It's sleek. It's
it is sleek, but it's much smaller. It's about kind of the size of your cards.
Yes.
It's just the size of a credit card. So it's not the stupid bulbous one I've had for my whole life. It's actually too cool for me. But yeah, me and Stephanie, and look, it's worth it, but you got to put a little time into it.
Yeah.
But once you get your cards in there and get it figured out, that thing is really worth it. It took Stephanie and I a while on Sunday night to get all my stuff, to figure out exactly how it worked. But once you figure it out, and I say a while, 7 minutes. But that's 7 minutes more than you ever needed with an actual wallet, with like the wallets from our childhood. But it's really cool, and it just like I've had my cards slip out of my wallet.
Yes, yeah, man.
I've had them slip out. I've been at a bar, I've been at Corner Pocket, and all my cards and stuff just fall on the floor. Not with this thing.
Nope.
They ain't going nowhere.
Also, the added peace of mind that there's RFID blocking technology, so the digital pickpocketing stuff you don't have to worry about either. Check it out, everybody. Also has a 99-day risk-free trial, so give it a shot. I think you're going to like it. Ridge.com/wakeup. Ridge.com/wakeup. We're back. It's Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy. Shake it and take it. VitaminEnergy.com. Not sure the next time we're going to do a show, but we definitely will be leaning on you folks to be generating discussion sparked by comments. So check out the warchant.com tribal counselor in the next day or two. We'll post the thread and we'll rip off another show for you folks. Also a reminder, later today, Florida State baseball back in action, hosting UNF at 6 o'clock. And then they, I think 4 o'clock on Wednesday, host Bethune-Cookman before Lipscomb. And that'll be the final, I guess, tune-ups before they really dive into things, kicking off into conference play.
Yeah.
Want to get your thoughts on this real quick, Corey. I'm more of like the troublemaker or rabble rouser. I don't really want to bend the knee all that much. I'm not trying to be difficult, but it's like, hey man, you guys get paid a lot of money. This is your job. Congrats? ? But to your point earlier in the program about like Florida State sticking their neck out, obviously for themselves. This wasn't a totally altruistic thing to pave the road of exit for everybody else in the ACC and anybody else in a conference they're not happy with. But I'm sure there was moments where even the most optimistic person within the Florida State administration was like, man, what are we doing right now? When they would read stuff about, whether it's ESPN.com articles or Wall Street Journal or, Feinbaum, whomever, saying that Florida State's not a good television partner. They're poison. They're toxic. Who's going to want to pick them up? And then at the end of the day, to navigate this thing, like a guy like Peter Collins, man, I mean, the board of trustees, Drew Weatherford, the people that are on that board, to, face the existential threat that this conference could possibly sink this athletic program. And in turn, I don't know what this university looks like without a viable, successful football program. But for them to, I don't want to give them a little bit of their flowers, as the kids would say, because I don't know, man, ironclad sounds a little bit intimidating to me. I would imagine that the ACC is going to be able to put together a really formidable legal team that I don't know if I really want to go heads up with, but I guess, really shout out to the people, the power brokers, if you will, behind the university, whether it's Michael Alford, President McCullough, Peter Collins. I think, if anything, we can keep our negative comments onto the message board. But if you see those folks out in public or you tweet at them, you should probably show some thanks and gratitude.
Yeah, sure. And again, I don't. You touched on it, and I wasn't trying. I don't remember who the poster was that talked about the mid-major. I understand the sentiment about not being happy, stuck in the ACC, stuck in quotes for the next 5 years. I was pushing back that, look, man, the Sun Belt is a mid-major. Florida State, the point is, if Florida State takes care of their business, they should be a perennial playoff contender every year. Every year. That's not a bad place to be. The ACC at least gives them that. Now, are you making as much money as Alabama? No. But you are a perennial playoff contender every year. If you take care of your own house and do things the right way, that should be the bare minimum is a playoff contender. And if Florida State gets back to being Florida State, a national championship contender every year. But right now, playoff contender is great. Get back. But, you think about if they would have stuck with the grain of right, if they would have been stuck in this conference, if Florida State would have just said, well, we signed that deal. I don't remember if it was Thrasher or Barron or both that signed the amended deal back then that extended it to 2036. In those numbers, the projections that we've seen where it's $40 million a year more that these other schools are making. So just do the math. If they were making $40 million a year for the next 11 years, that's $444 million more that Florida is going to make more than you over the next 11 years. 400. Let's make it a nice even $500 million. Over the next 11 and a half years, $500 million, Florida would make more than you. Now, with 5 years of this, and you're getting 15, so 5 years of this plus the added 15 that you're getting, that number probably, and these are estimates, goes to what, man? 120 million, right? Until we hope you're on a level playing field with them. You're not destined to be $500 million poorer than Florida until 2036 now. You're destined to make $100 million or so less for the rest of the decade, maybe 110, maybe $100 million, but that's survivable. So at least you're surviving until you can get on the level playing field. There was no guarantee. No guarantee. It was maybe a probability, certainly a possibility, but it was not an absolute definite going to happen that Florida State would ever get on a level playing field. That they could just leave the ACC tomorrow and have a landing spot where they're making as much money as Michigan. I don't know that was even feasible. Not right now. So you made the best of a bad situation. You've cut your losses significantly to where if you are worried about Florida and lapping you, they're not going to be making so much more money than you over the next decade and a half now that you have no chance to ever catch up potentially. It's there. The horizon is there. It's way off in the distance, man. It is a Texas horizon, but it is there. You can see how you can get there. Where, again, this weekend, you were hopeful, but there was no guarantee that a horizon would ever be there. Now there is, at least. So that's why I'm trying to see it as a positive step that and again, this is all rumored, it's all reported, but there's some finality to it perhaps. That by 2030, you will be out of this conference. Man, that is so much better than 2036. It is as good as 2026? Of course not. But it's better than 2036. So I kind of try to look at it as the glass half full. And you're just going to have to suck it up and wear it. Suck it up, Buttercups, for the next 5 years and try to win this stupid conference a few times. I don't think that's that much to ask.
All right. But, yeah, congrats, Peter Collins and company, for getting us out of this conference.
Well, that was all that. I was trying to praise them in that roundabout way. Like, that's what they got. They got us a horizon. They cut the deficit to Florida by, I don't know, $400 million over the next 11 years. That's a pretty substantial slice of pie. So I think, yes, I do think they deserve some credit for it. But I also understand the sentiment of, yeah, man, we thought we'd be out of this conference by 2026. Yeah. Well, that's not going to happen. But you did get some serious concessions from the people you were suing.
All right, so we talked about some of the baseball stuff later this week. On Thursday, we're going to speak to Director of Football Strength and Conditioning, Josh Storms, and we're also going to get the other two newcomers that we weren't able to catch up with earlier last month. I can't believe it's already March. Can you believe that, man?
I can, buddy. I can. My anniversary's in March.
Right, that's right. Yeah. So we'll get Gunnar Hansen and defensive lineman Jason Jenkins. There's stuff out there in the ether about Jenkins and his availability for this upcoming season, but I don't have anything firm on it. But I think if you go to warchant.com and the Tribal Council, there's some threads you guys can maybe read.
Hey, if we get them on Thursday, we'll know pretty soon.
Yeah, we will. We will. So I don't know if that means we're not going to be able to watch Tour of Duty. We got some dates in an email, not like a definitive, this is like ironclad. Touche. I can't say touche to your own stuff, Aslan. Step back. No. But yeah, I don't know if that means that we're not going to get Tour of Duty action this time around, but
that's all right.
Yeah,
it's all right.
Hey.
Right? They're going to run around some hula hoops and sweat a lot, maybe puke in a bucket. I mean, it's fine. We know they're working hard, right, Aslan?
Correct. And first day of spring practice, Wednesday, March 19th, boys and girls. So there you have it. We'll get to Coach Norvell the Monday before that, and then all the other coaches too. So it sounds like the luncheon that's been a fixture of the Mike Norvell tenure here at Florida State. We'll still have that. So we'll get to speak to him, get a sort of state of the Seminoles overlook view, and then we'll also get all the other coaches mingling around. So we'll have a lot of that stuff. I know it's 2 weeks away or whatever, but I'm sure a lot of people are wanting to know when this team's going to hit the grass in pads and things like that. So now we know.
March 19th. Yep. So that's exciting. It's just 2 weeks away, folks.
Any concerns we're not going to be able to watch practice?
No. I feel like that would have been told to us. It would have been set up that way. But yeah, hopefully we'll be able to watch practice. Right. I guess I have some concerns,
some trepidation.
but some trepidation. But I think it would. I don't know, man. I know nobody listening to this really cares if we watch practice or not, especially after last year when we told all y'all they were going to win a national championship, apparently. But I would not like that Norvell would go back on something that I thought was like a kind of a staple of who he was. Like, I'm proud of the way we practice. I'm not trying to hide anything. Y'all are allowed to watch. To then go to, no, y'all can't watch anymore.
Right.
That wouldn't be a great sign to me. But obviously, nobody cares if we watch practice, and if they go 10-2, absolutely nobody will care. Yeah. It'll make our lives easier. We'll have to get up in the morning.
What are we going to talk about 5 days a week, though?
Just Norvell's energy coming off the practice field.
We'll stretch out those mailbags of 3 days out a week.
Yeah.
All right, that's a wrap for us, but we'll be back with at least one more show, maybe two. Who knows? We'll see how we're feeling. Seminole headlines, 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. Corey, Jeff, and Ira. No particular order and who's the best.
Right.
And warchant.com got you covered throughout the week. Some recruiting stuff starting to percolate. I guess coaches are allowed to go visit recruits again on campus. Whatever quiet, dead period, whatever they're called. I think that might have lifted off. So see what Michael and Matt Lasser got reported over on the PRB. And subscribe to warchant.com. Hit the thumbs out. Leave a 5-star rating review. We'll be back again with some more shows for you folks this week. Don't forget, Headline starts at 1 o'clock. He's Corey Mazon. Thanks for listening to Wake Up Warchant, presented by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com.